the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Then 80,242,079,039 kobo for the second Niger Bridge. And also 50,856,044,301 naira for the Abuja-Kaduna-Kano-Zaria Road, which totals the sum of 150 billion naira, 619,072,657 kobo. There is also indeed a potential conflict of interest in Julius Berger's involvement in the second Niger Bridge. The second Niger Bridge is made up of 3 sections, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. Phase 1 is the bridge itself. Phase 2A is Benin to Asaba Expressway, while Phase 2B is Onitsha to Enugu Expressway. Phase 1 of the job was to be awarded as a design, build, finance, operate and transfer basis under the PPP scheme. That's the Public-Private Partnership Scheme. Phase 2 and Phase 2B, Phase 2A and 2B were to be awarded as traditional contracts. The same job has now been awarded to Julius Berger for 206 billion naira as against the cost of 118 billion valued by the PPP. A Swiss challenge bid process ought to be adopted to avoid a situation of potential conflict of interest. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, Julius Berger is involved in all these 3 critical projects and of course other major road projects under Sukuk. All these projects are lagging behind schedule, which brings to fore Julius Berger's capacity to indeed handle these projects simultaneously. The use of direct procurement under Section 42 of the Public Procurement Act in awarding these projects as against the opening competitive bidding under Section 24 of the Public Procurement Act has indeed deprived Nigerians of transparency, due process, and potential to save money. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, indeed, even the looted funds of Abacha that are supposed to be repatriated have now been projected to be used to fund most of these projects, even when funding has never been the issue. Prayers to urge the House Committee on Works to investigate 1. To determine if the contractor had the capacity to deliver the contracts awarded as scheduled and why it must always be the same contractor. 2. To investigate the level of work done on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, Abuja-Kaduna, Zaria-Kano Expressway and the second Niger Bridge in order to determine if the amount so disbursed so far has a commensurate value with the job or with the work done till date. Thirdly, to determine if there is indeed a potential conflict of interest in awarding these contracts to a single contractor. And to determine, finally, if the contract sums have indeed been inflated, considering the nature of our economy. And finally, for the House Committee on Works to report their findings and make recommendations back to this distinguished honorable House in 4 weeks. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I so move.
Okay, Honorable Eden. And Honorable Kauje.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, my name is Idem Unyime, member representing Ukanafun, Orogonam Federal.
Honorable Benson, please approach the chair.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion as heavily moved by my colleague, Honorable Ifeanyi. I so second.
Honorable Ifeanyi. Honorable Ifeanyi, you've led your debate. Yeah, I thought you wanted to contribute to the debate. It's not an infrastructure debate. It's not infrastructure. It's not. Is it infrastructure? Okay. So we'll put the question. Those in support, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. There's a any other motion? Urgent public importance. Okay, honorable members, first business of the day is presentation of 5 bills, and I invite the clerk to read the short titles.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, Charter Institute of Health Insurance and Management Care of Nigeria Assignment Bill 2020, first reading. Federal University of Agriculture, Jalingo, Assignment Bill 2020, first reading. Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999, Alteration Bill 2020, first reading. Criminal Code Act Amendment Bill 2020, first reading. Electoral Offences Commission Establishment Bill 2020, first reading.
Second business of the day is presentation of report of the ad hoc committee on investigation of the non-remittance of contributions to the Nigerian Social Insurance Trust Fund by the federal, state, and local governments, parastatals, public corporations, and companies. Standing in the name of Honorable Sada Soli. Honorable members will recall that the matter was referred to the ad hoc committee on Thursday, 18th July 2019. The report is ready for presentation. Honorable Sada is now invited to present the report.
Mr. Speaker, my name is Sada Soli, representing Jibia Kaita Federal Constituency. I'm from Katsina State. Mr. Speaker, I move that this House do receive the report of the ad hoc committee on the investigation of the non-remittance of contributions to the Nigerian Social Insurance Trust Fund, NSITF, by the federal government, states and local governments, parastatals, public corporations, and companies. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
I was looking for Honorable Luke to second, but I don't see him on his seat. SMA, can you second the...
Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, I am Honorable Said Musa Abdullahi, member representing the people of Bidagwa-Kokacha Federal Constituency. I am from Niger State. I rise to second the motion ably moved by Honorable Sada Soli. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, those in support of the motion, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Honorable Sada, you may lay your report. Honorable colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of 4 reports of the Committee on Public Petitions. Standing in the name of Honorable Jerry Alagbaso, Honorable Alagbaso is invited to present his report.
Dear Honorable Speaker, my colleagues, my name is Jerry Alabos. I'm from Imo State, representing Olo, also, and Ori Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I rise to lead that we laid a report on about 4 petitions. One by International Recruitment Services, second one by Henry Onuke and Co. Third one is Ayub Badantero, and the fourth one is International Trading and Company Limited. I hereby Move to lay the report, Mr. Speaker.
Any seconder? Legends second.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My honorable colleagues, I am Honorable Ferdinand Dozie Nwankwo, member representing the good people of Njikoka and all Chadunu Federal Constituency. I rise to second a motion heavily moved by my colleague, Honorable Jerry Abalaboso. I thereby second.
Honorable colleagues, are we in support that Honorable Jerry Alagbaso lay his reports? Honorable Jerry Alagbaso has reports to lay. Are we in support of that motion? Those in support, please say aye. Aye. Those against Honorable Jerry Alagbaso laying his report, please say nay. Okay. Honorable Jerry Alagbaso has just moved to lay his report on 4 reports on public petitions. Honorable Alagbaso, please stand up for recognition so they know who we're talking about. That motion was supported by Honorable Nwako. Honorable Alagbaso's motion, those in support that he lays his report, and please don't, you have a right to vote wherever you want to vote. Those in support that Honorable Alagbaso lays his report, please say aye. The ayes have it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Honorable Alagbaso, lay your report. Honorable colleagues, the first order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principles of a bill for an act to amend the National Youth Service Corps Act Cap N84, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and for related matters standing in the name of Honorable Nkiruka Onyejocha, Honorable Lalins Abdullahi, and Honorable Samuel Chinedu Onwaso. Honorable members will recall that the bills were consolidated on Wednesday, 11 December 2019. I now invite Honorable Onyejocha to move that the bill be now read a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am Kiruka Onyejocha. I represent the good people of the Isukwatu Federal Constituency. I am from Abia State. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I seek the leave of this House to step down this bill for further legislative input. I so move.
Okay, you're stepping it down? Okay. Bill, step down. Second order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principles of a bill for an act to provide special financial support. Now, I want members to listen very carefully to this bill because it's very important. An act to provide special financial support, training, and modern security equipment for the revamping of the Nigerian Armed Forces, and for related matters, standing in the name of Honorable Babajimi Benson. Honorable members will recall that the bill was read for the first time on Tuesday, 25th, 2020. I now invite Honorable Benson to move that the bill be now read a second time. Honorable colleagues, if you notice, it says that the bill was read for the first time on Tuesday, 25th of February. That's 2 days ago, and is now coming up for second reading. Honorable Jimmy Benson, how did you manage that?
Grace of God, sir.
I think it's because the House realizes the importance of funding the military, having separate funding, because I think the national budget cannot fund the military the way we want it funded. So, Honorable Jimmy Benson, move your motion.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable colleagues, I rise to propose that a bill for an act to provide special financial support for the revamping of the Nigerian Armed Forces with the provision of regular training for Armed Forces personnel and the provision of modern security and defense equipment and other related matters
be read a second time. I so propose.
Okay, Honorable Luke Onofiong finally found his way into the chambers. Can you please second the motion?
I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Onofiong Luke, 1893 Bomsurubio Federal Constituency, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the motion as moved by Honorable Babajimi Benson for the second reading of the bill, sir.
Thank you. Honorable Benson, please lead the debate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have traveled to the areas that is occupied by the insurgents. We have met with service chiefs. We have met with security people from the United States of America and the EU. One thing is constant, Mr. Speaker, that Nigeria is at war. Nigeria is at war at the moment, but we don't have a budget that can finance a war. What we have at the moment, Mr. Speaker, is an envelope-based budget that cannot prosecute this war that we are in. Mr. Speaker, in most modern countries, there's always a fund or the convergence of people that deliberate, that agree, and that help fund this war. Mr. Speaker, we also met with the ebullient, efficient, compassionate governor of Borno State, who has also expressed his unhappiness at the way this war is being prosecuted. To this end, Mr. Speaker, we have come up with a bill that we believe can help end this war within the shortest possible time. It's a bill that has 23 sections. It has a board that appears transparent and accountable. We have not just allowed the service chiefs and defense CDS become members. We have looked at the private sector. We have included men of integrity, particularly the MD, the guy in Sovereign Wealth Fund. We've also included a retired TBN governor and heads of communication and oil and gas companies. To this end, Mr. Speaker, I pray that this bill be allowed to go for second reading, and I urge my compatriots and colleagues to kindly assist in the passage of this bill. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Nkiruka, then the Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Colleagues. I am Kiruka Onyejoch. I represent the good people of the Isukwatu Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Colleagues, I am from Abia State. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Colleagues, this bill is very important at this critical time because even though I may not agree that we are at war, but I know that we are suffering from serious insecurity issues that needs funding. But you can say technically we are at war, technically. So in supporting this bill, I want also to point out that people should not be scared about having a trust fund, so to speak. Because in the body of the bill, like it has 20-something section, it stated that these people that are going to manage this fund are people who have been tested and trusted. And that it's going to be for 5 years. Meaning that within 5 years, we predict that the situation of insecurity would have come to a halt. That's what the parliament believes, and that's what the executive also believes. And I also have to state here that we as parliament have investigated a lot of funds in the past. And we know that most times, if we budget for certain items, people divert it to do other things. And these are the concerns of people. And that's is why in the crafting of this particular bill, we stated the kind of people that will manage this fund. So we are aware, so that people will not go and say, oh, another conduit pipe. This particular fund is not going to be a conduit pipe for anybody. The narratives have to change because all of us are hurting. People are hurting from Damaturu to the west, from Lagos to Abeokuta, to Abia, Cross River, Bayelsa, down to Katsina State. Everywhere is hurting. And so there is no way you shy away from the responsibility that funding is part of the problems we have. Because over the years you see that many people who have taken up arms, that our security agencies don't even have the arms to match them. Some of them will carry AK-47 or something that is even higher than that, and we are carrying something that they will call Bala or whatever, or pump action, whatever name. But the point is that what we have is not commensurate to the kind of situation that we find ourselves in. And of course, nobody believes in Nigeria that we're going to face people who are ready to kill themselves. And so it's very tricky, and it's something that is very, very serious. And so I support that security is development. Without security, there won't be any development. Like just yesterday I was saying, that even if you deploy contractors to go and work on a road that kidnappers have stationed themselves day in and day out, or they kidnap one contractor and the other people will go. So security is development in all its ramifications. So Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, there's not much to talk on this bill apart from the point that we need these funds. And people who are going to manage these funds shall be tested, trusted Nigerians. And the bill and the fund will last for 5 years. It's not forever. We envisage that this war or this insecurity will come to an end very soon. So with these simple submissions, I support that this bill would be read for the second time. I so submit.
Yeah, thank you. Before we move on, let me just quickly clarify something, especially because of this is a security matter and the press are here before they go out with screaming headlines tomorrow that Nigeria is at war, so declares representatives. No, I believe Honorable Jimmy Benson was trying to drive home a point, and he embellished the state of the nation at this time. I think, like Honorable Kiruka pointed out, you can even argue technicalities, but I don't think we're at war yet, because war has even constitutional implications. It has to be declared formally, and I believe the National Assembly, perhaps the Senate, has to approve deployment of soldiers through their resolution. So, but what we can say is that we have something akin to that. We're at a major security crisis, and we need to create funds that will support that. So,
thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable members. My name is Mohamed Tahir Manguno. I represent Martia Manguno, Ganza Federal Constituency of Borno State. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I in total concur with you that Nigeria is not at war. At most, what we are facing is series of security challenges across the nooks and crannies of the country that we need to think out of the box with a view to preparing solutions to the lingering security challenges that we are facing across the nooks and crannies of this country. Against this backdrop, Mr. Speaker, I support this motion because this bill, because the primary responsibility of any government is to guarantee the peace, order, and good governance of the country. That is the primary responsibility of any government. And as such a duty should always be in the front burner of whatever government is doing. Against this backdrop, Mr. Speaker, the need to establish a fund that will cater for the funding of our armed forces cannot be overemphasized, because no nation on earth funds its security or its armed forces through the normal budgetary line. Countries like Brazil, Egypt, and even United States of America also go outside the normal budgetary line to fund the activities of their armed forces. And here in Nigeria, the armed forces even have the additional burden of now engaging in duties that are ordinarily supposed to be done by the police. Issues of armed banditry, issues of kidnapping that is now everywhere across the nooks and crannies of the country are issues that are ordinarily supposed to be dealt with by the police. But because of the fact that the police is overstretched, our armed forces are now everywhere in the theater of conflict, everywhere across the nooks and crannies of the country. So they are overstretched. So there is need for us to think out of the box and then source for other alternative means of funding them so that they can effectively tackle these problems that constitute a threat to the territorial integrity of this country. As such, I support the second reading of this bill. Thank you.
Honorable Musa Sekiada.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. I am Musa Sekiada. I represent the very generous people of Gada, Goron constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Sokoto State. Let me thank the mover of this bill. It is a very noble one, indeed. I only have some concerns in the provisions and the lead debate, which I would like to buttress here for us to understand clearly and maybe come up with some amendments, if possible. The sources of funds, I have just conferred with the presenter, and he has told us that in the body of the bill, it has been well spelled out clearly. Otherwise, earlier on what is here appears to be inadequate. However, a bill of this nature should not be given time limits. We have specified fundraising as part of the source of this fund. Fundraising in Nigeria today may not help to get the desired result. We should be unequivocal to establish specifically how this fund will be sourced. We have enough resources within our midst in the nation's coffer. We only need to make sacrifice of a certain percentage for the purpose of our security. But there must be strong caveats of the utilization of such funds. Why I said fundraising will not yield any result now, as of today.
Sorry, 1 second. Honorable Jimmy Benson, your bill, is it just basically to look for charitable sources and raise funds? I thought it was, a bill compelling certain specific allocations. Let me just clarify, because it raises, Honorable Secretary raises a very good point.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's not just charity, sir. There's some specific heads. For instance, sir, 1% of total money accruing to the Federation account, 0.5% of profit made from the Sovereign Wealth Fund, an amount constituting 1% of VAT remitted to the Consolidated Fund. So it's a mixture, it's a potpourri of government and private sector funding, sir.
Okay, so it's a mixture of both. Yeah, okay, continue, please, Honorable Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I was saying, as of today, fundraising will not be sufficient enough and will not help. I'm not advocating, but I know people will not bring out their monies to support fundraising and for the security. Rather, we should go to specific areas of businesses, such as the maritime industry, such as the oil industry, such as the agricultural businesses, and other communication businesses. These are the businesses that are doing well in Nigeria as of today, and they are the beneficiaries of security support. But if you call fundraising, to my understanding, I come from a village, I'm not a villager. My understanding is you are asking all Nigerians to contribute like they used to do during the annual Armed Forces Remembrance Days. Remembrance Days. You see people going with some cups in their hand asking for donation. And people are giving 10 naira, 100,000, like something like that. I believe what they generate in that is not anything appreciable. And as such, if you go on national fundraising for the armed forces, or for the support of armed forces, you will not generate anything. But the law here should say specifically the gains made by this sectors I mentioned, 10% or 5% or 1% of it should go to the support of armed forces funding. Second, sir, there's also need to extend it without limit of time. To say that the fund will wind up after 5 years is not enough. Security is also something that can be achieved within 1 to 5 years. It's ever continuous. So let it continue like the likes of TED Fund, the like of all other funds that we have established through the act of this parliamentary. It should go on and on. And as we continue to move on with the population growth of Nigeria, nobody, I'm not advocating, but nobody can guarantee the security that we so much desire. So I have quarrel with those provisions, and I hope the presenter will take note of that when it comes to public hearing, that it should be adequately adjusted or amended. However, I support the bill, and I urge all members here to support it, but like I said, with strong caveat for the expenditure of the money to be generated. People of higher and people of character, people who are transparent enough, who are known to be very transparent, like Mr. Speaker, should be the members of the board of that place. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chairman Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, my name is Abubakar Samfulata. I represent Berniwa, Krika Sama, Gudi Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Jigawa State. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I think the import of this bill could be discerned from the fact that at present, our budgetary system operates on the basis of envelope. And the envelope allocated to defense at present cannot effectively take care of our challenges, especially within the security context. It is in view of this shortcoming that the chairman defense and the leadership came up with the idea of sourcing extra funds to augment whatever that is allocated to the entire defense budgetary allocation. So members should see this thing within the context of the immediate challenge that is facing this country. Whatever that we can do in this hollow chamber to assist our armed forces, honorable colleagues, we should do. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, Honorable, we'll deal. Then we move on to, I think everybody wants to contribute. We'll move on to this row.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I am Honorable Engineer Muhammad Ali Wudil. I represent Wudil Garko Federal Constituency. I'm from Kano State. Mr. Speaker, first of all, let me start by eulogizing the mover or the presenter of this bill. This bill is long overdue. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the funding of our security agencies generally, more especially the armed forces, I think, Mr. Speaker, we need to look at it critically. Like the former speaker said, what the level of arms in with our security agencies, what the level of arms with bandits, kidnappers, and other security, insecurity that is disturbing this country. I say, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the prayer to look for the fund, I tend to agree with Honorable Sarkin Ada that we need a fund like the TED fund, like the police fund, like USPF, Universal Service Providers Fund, that we get a percentage to fund this agency, because this to fund our armed forces, because we need to secure our country. Without fund, we cannot secure our country. I thank the mover of this motion, and I call on our colleagues to give this bill and to pass this bill with the speed of light. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Ali Ahmed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My name is Nasir Ali Ahmed. I represent Nasarawa Federal Constituency, and I'm from Kano State, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there's no doubt that the ability of any military force to function effectively lies in the sufficient funding of that military. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the different countries that the Nigerian military has been sent to, either under the United Nations or ECOMOG. Take, for example, in Liberia, in Sierra Leone. Mr. Speaker, the Nigerian military performed very, very well. And why? Because there was sufficient funding in all the places, in all these places that they have served. Mr. Speaker, yesterday while watching Channels News, I saw a very, very sad story. Apparently, a soldier shot and killed 4 other soldiers and shot himself. Why would any sane soldier do that, Mr. Speaker? It shows you that we do have a serious problem, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I believe that if we are really serious on funding the military, then I believe the National Assembly should take the bull by the horns and lead by example. And why I say so, Mr. Speaker, I believe every single member in this chamber, if we are really serious, then we should donate a percentage of our salaries to the armed forces. We should take the bull by the horn and let it start from this chamber, Mr. Speaker. Every member, for the duration of this tenure from 2019 to 2023. Mr. Speaker.
Sorry, Honorable Ali Ahmed, sorry.
Let me repeat myself, Mr. Speaker. I said if we are really serious about funding the military, I believe it should start from this chamber. I believe that every single member should be willing to donate a percentage of his salary to the funding of the Nigerian Armed Forces. And
exactly, doesn't know.
This is something I believe that will go a long way, even though we have the power of appropriation, Mr. Speaker, but I believe the budgetary allocation that is given to the Nigerian Army is something that is way too small. And insecurity, Mr. Speaker, is a very important issue. So I urge every member, Mr. Speaker, to donate a percentage which can be agreed upon by this chamber for the entire duration of this tenure, Mr. Speaker, to the armed forces of Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk.
Thank you. I think we'll consider that at the committee level. Honorable Wako, let's keep to 1 minute each because there's so many hands up so that we can move on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my colleagues. I am Honorable Ferdinand Dozie Nwankwo, member representing the good people of Njikoka and Ocha, Dunuko Federal Constituency, and I'm from Anambra State. Mr. Speaker, I'm rise to support this bill, but I have a different view, and I want to do my input. The issue of security is a great problem in this country. If you watch social media, you see our military men fighting Boko Haram. And the equipment they have can never be good enough to fight this menace of insecurity. But my problem is, it's not about the funding. The problem is corruption. The problem is management of the funds. Let us support this bill, but critically make sure that even if there is funds for this military to carry out their security projects, we must make sure that the funding are being utilized on a very issue that has been approved for. Is the corruption. Corruption is a major problem. Because I have a lot of problems, a lot of challenges. I don't want to mention it here, Mr. Speaker. But I'm pain in my heart. But every time we rise up here and say there's no enough funding, there's no enough funding, what of the one they are allocated for them? What are the one that were appropriated for them? What is happening to it? They should give account of it. I'm not against it. I support the bill. But most importantly, even if we have funding, we must make sure that it's being utilized in the proper way. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, we're only going to take 3 from each row so we can move on. Dr. Michelle.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Honorable Speaker, I remain Honorable Dr. Haruna Michelia. I represent the good people of Askra Obahawal Federal Constituency of Borno State. I think, Mr. Speaker, first I want to thank Baba Jimmy Benson for bringing this bill. Because those of us that are coming from the epicenter of the confusion or the insurgency will tell you that we've had several meetings with the military regarding controlling what is happening to our country. And most of the time, the complaint is they don't have enough resources. And truly, resources is a relative term. Even if you are to allocate half of the budget of Nigeria to them, they will still have some problems and gaps. But I think the proposal presented by Baba Jimmy is okay enough, and I urge our colleagues to add all our voices and accept that this thing be read the second time. I so submit, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Honorable Ogene.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for yielding the floor to me. My name is Honorable Ogene Ego. I represent the very good people of Amuodofi Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm a Lagosian. No distraction, please. First, let me thank Jimmy Benson for this wonderful bill that he's moving, for his patriotism. But I want to ask some pertinent questions. The army keeps saying that Boko Haram is degraded and that we have basically won the battle. I want to find out, has the army cried out to say that the information that have been given to Nigeria are lies? We need to know. Because if we are saying we need a special funding for the war, the army is telling us that they have won, that it's just a matter of time they have been uprooted. And now we are giving them special funding. My fear is that even if that special funding comes, are they going to account for it? I'm aware that $1 billion was at the time announced that we're taking it from the sovereign account or federation account for that fight. Have that money been disbursed? If it was disbursed, what did they use it for? $1 billion. Is that not enough for them to fight an army they describe, rebels described as ragtag rebels? How can they get $1 billion and we don't know what it's used for? I want to say that there's absolute need for accountability on this war. If there's no accountability, even if you give them the whole world, they will not use it for anything. And again, while I support Baba Jimmy, because he's my brother from Lagos, I also want to say that 1% of federation account money is too much. 1% from VAT is too much. 0.5% from, what do you call it, from, just a moment, 0.5% from everywhere for it's too much. How much is the state getting? And then
what about the normal allocation that is going to the army? What are they going to be using it for? Are we going to stop that altogether? When I support this bill, we need to examine the bill very properly. And then again, we must define the war very well. Now, 3 days ago, Honorable Wife moved a motion about his people who have been attacked in Uweru, in Delta State. Herdsmen are attacking, killing people everywhere. 10 people were killed. Is that not part of the war? So when we are talking about it, let's not look at only Northeast. Recently, 30 people were killed in Katsina.
Did the mover or sponsor of the bill, or does the bill particularize it to Northeast? It says Nigerian Army. Okay. Do you have your constitution with you? Okay. Read out section 83 of the Constitution to the benefit of the House.
Section 83 says, the National Assembly may by law provision for the establishment of contingencies, fund for the Federation, and fund for the Federation, and for authorizing the President is certified that there has arisen an urgent and unforeseen need for expedition for which no other provision exists, to make advances for the fund to meet the need.
Let me ask you, what you've just read out now, is that not the fund that is being created by the National Assembly? Okay, you are talking about the quantum. That is too much money. Okay, we'll resolve that at the committee level. It's the general principles that we're debating now. The merits and demerits and the general principles. Those nitty-gritty, those details at the committee level, they'll deal with it. Tell them at the committee level that this money is too much for the military, and then they can reduce it.
Sir, I've agreed with you that I'm supporting this bill. But what I'm saying is that the money.
Your point is taken. Don't worry. It's okay. You've made your point. Don't worry. Honorable Sada Soli.
Mr. Speaker, my name is Sada Soli, representing Jibia Kaita Federal Constituency. I'm from Katsina State, Mr. Speaker, for yielding the floor for me, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is yet another legislative initiative in addressing the security challenges of this country. Mr. Speaker, this bill is not asking too much.
Honorable Ogene, please listen to Honorable Salasoli. He's taking issues directly with you on what you just said about too much.
Mr. Speaker, this bill is not asking too much in order to strengthen the armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, these are our first line defense while we're in our beds. Mr. Speaker, there is no better time for the House of Representatives to come to the aid of the armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria than now. Mr. Speaker, yes, we have security challenges. Yes, if we're a country that is peaceful without security challenges, we cannot still stand and fold our arms not to support our armed forces. Mr. Speaker, this bill is trying to fill in the funding gap in strengthening our armed forces. Mr. Speaker, one of the merits of this bill is to make our armed forces result-oriented and more effective than what they are now. Mr. Speaker, getting 1% and then driving some funds from the sovereign social wealth fund, taking something from the VAT, taking something from the ticketing, and also driving some advantages of our private sector and philanthropic individuals of this country, we are still not asking too much. This country is not asking too much. This is the time we should wake up and come to the defense and assistance of our armed forces, gallant armed forces. Daily, these young men and women are dying in defense of each one and every one of us in this chamber. Mr. Speaker, one of the most important aspects of this bill is the money will be collected by federal inland revenue, not an agency. So we are sure the money will be collected prudently and will be applied judiciously. Mr. Speaker, above all, the money will be budgeted by National Assembly. So I do not think members of this August chamber should exercise any fear with regards to this bill. This bill is nationalistic. This bill is here to address some of the challenges our armed forces are facing. And another thing, this bill will be subjected to review in every 5 years or less. So it's futuristic. And every law is supposed to be futuristic. So I appeal to our colleagues to allow this bill to go to the second reading, and we take it to the committee and we make the necessary amendments so that we can strengthen it to see that we can have a better armed forces of Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable colleagues, I just wanted to make a clarification. The bill, from my understanding, if you look at subsection 2 of section 83, which Honourable Ogene read out, it's not for the armed forces or the military to dip their hands into the funds and just spend willy-nilly however they want it. No. Subsection 2 actually mandates that it's a contingency fund, that they will now bring their requests for expenditure from that fund to the National Assembly for approval. So there are already checks and balances that have been baked into that section and into the bill. I just wanted to clarify. Honorable Shaulu.
Honorable Speaker, dear colleagues, my name is Romande Shaulu Kwewu, representing Taukumdonga Osa and Yangtu Federal Constituency in Taraba State. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to bore the House. I just want to give 3 facts to help us understand the challenges that the security agencies have. When people say that there is no money in the security agencies, perhaps people don't understand the enormity of the problems that we have. For instance, in the Northeast, in 2016, we had the ratio of soldiers to landmass was 1 soldier per 5 kilometers. I brought a motion to the floor of the House in the last assembly, which was passed. One of the challenges that we have in Nigeria is that the ratio of people in arms to the population is one of the lowest in the world. We are supposed to have a minimum of, by UN standards, about 19 million people in the armed forces today. That is about 10% of the population. But we have today, including the police and civil defense, the police is about 350 or 320, the army about 100,000, civil defense and all the rest, you add up, we are barely 600.
What's your point of order?
Sorry, these are security matters that should not be.
I think his order is on relevance.
Under explanation. Under explanation, these are security issues that should not be disclosed here.
Are you bringing this on under privilege?
Speaker, yes, I'm bringing.
Because you are entitled by privilege. You are entitled to some level of secrecy and the tradition of this house when it comes to military matters, that we don't disclose security matters. That's the privilege you have. I believe that's the privilege you're coming under. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Prince Rotimi Agusoye, representing Kushope Federal Constituency of Lagos, under privilege and relevance. These are security matters. Minority leader, outside.
Minority leader, you have not been recognized. Minority leader, you have not been recognized. Allow him to take his. Okay, Honorable Agusoye has come under privilege practices of this house that matters of the military are subject to utmost secrecy. And I believe what he's trying to say is that Honorable Shaulu is disclosing the numerical strength of our army and our police. And these are things that should not be disclosed to the public and to the enemies. So if you can keep your contribution, bearing that in mind, that there's some certain things. You were chairman army, if I remember, in the last assembly. So you are privileged to have certain facts and figures. And that's why it's a privilege. And those things are not meant for open consumption. I think that's the point he's trying to make.
Honorable Speaker.
Your point of order is sustained.
Honorable Speaker, with due respect, sir, I'm very sensitive to sensitive information. And there's no information that I've given here that is not publicly available. I will not disclose sensitive information. There's nothing that I've said here that is not publicly available.
Honorable Jauri, it's publicly available for those who want to go out and seek for that public information. And not everybody reads. Some of these people who are the enemies of Nigeria don't even read, but they hear and they watch TV.
Saying, Honorable Speaker, is that we are undermanned. We don't have enough. That's part of the reason why we need security, where we need funding. For instance, like I did say, if you look at the strength of the U.S. Army, for instance, the Army alone in the U.S. is 100 million. Sorry, is 1 million. And other security, other apparatus are there. So you have security people involved in different things at different purposes. So we will need these resources for the security. Secondly, in terms of equipment, this information I'm going to give is in our budget. Our budget for the Army in 2017 was just, for capita, was about 19 billion. 19 billion at that time was about $500 million. And that, well, let's not talk about the release. And that money will not even have been able to buy the basic equipment that was needed. Not to talk of the barracks where soldiers live. It's of common knowledge, and the military people, Ministry of Defense has said it several times. If this war with Boko Haram, for instance, ends quickly, and our soldiers return, they will have nowhere to stay in the barracks, because in the last 10 years, most of the people who are recruited never lived inside the barrack. So part of the reason why I think when we are talking about funding of security agencies, we need to go. It was for this reason, Honorable Speaker, that in the last assembly we passed a bill that I brought to the House on the need to set up a bill to set up a National Security Agencies Trust Fund. And it passed but didn't go. It is in the House now, and I think they need to work with it also, because there are several windows of opportunities, best practices that are being done in other parts of the world. Those of you who travel frequently, you stay in hotels in Europe, there are taxes that you pay that go to the security agencies. They call them a terrorism tax. You may not notice it, very small. Because if you are going to fund the security agencies from the resources that is in the budget, you cannot. The United States this year, for instance, the budget that it has for the Army is, and regularly the United States, over 50% of its annual budget goes to the military. This year, I think it's about either 780 million or 580 billion dollars. So my plea is that we should look beyond, we should be careful about the way we lampoon the security agencies publicly. Three things happen when you do that. First, you discourage the civilians from cooperating with the security agencies, and that compounds our problem. Secondly, we create a situation where the morale comes down, I want to assure us, sir, with due respect as I end, that there is no person who is going to be the chief of army staff, chief of naval staff, chief of air force staff, that today is not in a command position. Therefore, the same problem happened with the former chief, the former military people that we had. We even said, and some people said they were going to take them to ICCs. In fact, there are subsisting cases against, I think, General Hejirka and General Minima in ICC. And all these things that we do, they create problems for the security agencies. So it's a good thing that today, it's good today that we're talking about funding them. And we should take it seriously. The money that my friend, my colleague and good friend talked about, $1 billion, is barely able to do anything for the security agencies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, honorable colleagues. Please, if you would just permit me, I want to emphasize something he just said in his last remarks. Whilst it's important that we continue to bring security issues to the attention of the government and public, he just said something that I caught on to about we have to be careful how we lampoon our security personnel. One, you said it reduces the morale of the personnel, and that's a fact. Two, it makes it difficult for the civilians to even cooperate with the military if we're here basically lampooning the military. And three, it encourages the insurgents, because they're hearing the way we're lampooning, and it emboldens them. So we have to deal with this thing with some level of discretion. So thank you for the contribution, Honorable Luke. Was that 3 parts? Otherwise, we won't leave here today. It's almost 2. We have to leave it. We have to cut it down. We've taken too many contributions. Everyone wants to talk, and I believe that it's necessary. It's an important. So let's just move on to this road. Take 2, 3 people and put the question. And then Honorable Taiwo, after Honorable Luke, and then we'll take you, Honorable Fred.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Onofiok Akpan Luke, Etinan Nsurubio Federal Constituency, Mr. Speaker. I'm from Akwa Ibom State, sir. Mr. Speaker, my constituents last year gave me a power of attorney, blanket power of attorney, to be able to act on their behalf on certain issues as it bothers the Federation of Nigeria and as equally would affect them. And one of such issues, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of ensuring that I speak on their behalf as it concerns the security of lives and properties of not only them, but the entire Nigerians, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, on that note, acting on that power of attorney, I want to support the bill that has been presented before us by some sponsors, with Honorable Babajimi Benson as the lead sponsor, as it seeks to establish a particular fund to support our armed forces, Mr. Speaker. I want to equally applaud the laudable objectives of the bill, which seeks to make provision for contingency fund for our armed forces, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, while acknowledging the fact that there is paucity of funds to be able to cater for our armed forces as it ought to, which has necessitated the coming of this bill before us, while we are making effort towards making funds available for our armed forces, Mr. Speaker, I think that there is something at the core of it which we must start to address from the very day one, which is the issue of checking the wastages and plugging leakages. Mr. Speaker, year before last, as a presiding officer in a state legislature, Mr. Speaker, just like it happened across the 36 states of the Federation, we passed a resolution at the level of the state houses of assembly authorizing the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to take the sum of $1 billion from the excess crude account for the purposes of security in this country. That was money made available to help in funding our armed forces and checking other securities. But Mr. Speaker, somewhere along the line, We have had to hear cases of people who were meant to use the money to act, having had to misuse or misapply such monies. So while we are making effort to make the monies available, Mr. Speaker, we equally must make effort towards making sure that we plug the loopholes and leakages. Mr. Speaker, the only point I would disagree with the provision of the bill is that, Mr. Speaker, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, section 217, subsection 1 and 2, establishes the armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and section 2 and the paragraph thereby gives the National Assembly the latitude, the powers to be able to enact laws and legislations on the issues of armed forces, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the laws of the Federation, Chapter 820, makes provision for the establishment of the armed forces. It's the Armed Forces Act, Mr. Speaker. And the long title reads, an act to provide for the command, maintenance, and administration of the armed forces of the Federation. So, Mr. Speaker, my suggestion is that instead of us to come by way of a fresh bill, we can seek to extend the frontiers of the Armed Forces Act by making provisions for its amendment, instead of having to have a fresh bill seeking to establish the support fund. So my provision and my position is that we can come by way of amendment of this bill to make, by amendment of this act to make provision for the establishment of this fund under the Armed Forces Act as it is in the laws of the Federation of Nigeria. Those are my humble submissions. Outside that, Mr. Speaker, I support this in its totality.
Problem with that approach is that we have not, the House has not determined whether it's going to be a five-year provision or a permanent one. If you put it in an amendment, it becomes a permanent part of the law. So, and then we have Section 83, which trumps the act. But yes, that could have been another approach. Honorable Taiwo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think you have really addressed me, because I am in support of the bill, because there is nothing wrong in us creating a fund to strengthen our armed forces. But the most important aspect of it is that it must be time-bound. That's why I love what you have just said. We have not even agreed whether it's going to be 5 years more. Because if we don't put time-bound, then we'll be creating another appropriation bill indirectly. And we'll be creating a situation where some people will just have free funds. And after addressing that problem, the funds will become idle funds that they can be shared anytime. That's why I just want to make a suggestion that there must be a time ban for the fund. It's good and I'm in support.
Thank you, Honorable Taiwo. And I think you are right, because we are pinning this on Section 83, which talks about contingency. Contingency means that it's not permanently. It's not permanent. So I think you're right. Honorable Fred.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues. Agbedi Yetemna Frederick is my name. I represent Sagbama Kirimo Federal Constituency. Zonkeme, I'm from Bayelsa State. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this bill because security is not only government business, it's everybody's business. And security is very, very expensive. Very, very expensive. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I know and I want to use this opportunity